It's Monday.
Monday.
Welcome, everybody. Man, so excited. So my name is Shelby.
This is Jeff from Jeff Hard to Come Back.
And this is More You Know Monday. Yeah, makes us seem a little professional. Freeway. You're just right here in front of the camera.
Can't go wrong with animals.
What can you do? Man. Oh, so how was your weekend, buddy?
It was good. It was some beautiful weather out here. I was able to hit a couple of stores, did a lot of yard work, but it was good. How about yours?
I had the Saturday off. Usually I do Gorilla Todd's auctions, but he wanted to take the night off. And so, I went with some friends to the Astros game.
Oh, that's right.
And watched them beat the Angels 13-2. So that was pretty exciting.
Yeah. If it's not the Cubs, I don't care.
Yeah, I understand.
But we did have the second Samurai Sunday auction. So you saw that. You were there for that.
I was there for about the last half of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's over on Wild Comics channel. So shout out to Wild Comics. Make sure you're following him. You're subbing him up. I know we got a bunch of people in the chats right here, from Wild Comics. Max, actually there's two Maxes. We appreciate all the Maxes. There's room for all the Maxes here and More You Know Monday.
Definitely.
Justin Weekend, hey, I appreciate the shout out that you did for me, brother. I really do. You've got a great show. You're building up a great community there. We're trying to do the same here, so I definitely appreciate it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely, Justin Weekend. Yeah, he reached out to me probably about a month ago and, said, hey, I just want to help support the community. Can I, say something nice about you? And I'm like, yeah, please do. So, but yeah, if anybody wants their link or something dropped, maybe IG it over to Jeff or I. He has admin rights on my channel and vice versa. And we can copy and paste your YouTube info and please, everybody sub each other up. And, I just love the community and love, all of us being connected. So it's a real great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Just shoot us the info. I know, Max, you do a lot of stuff on YouTube and Instagram. Send us your info for that. We'll drop it for you. Matthew, what's up, buddy? Hey, appreciate you showing up. Captain Ramos, awesome to see you again as always, brother.
Yep, Matthew was the early bird. He was on here before I was. I logged on about 7:30. So, so glad. Thank you for the support. All right, so let's see. We'll get started. First of all, we got all right, so last week we talked about women variants. You got any comments or updates from?
The biggest thing, obviously, is a lot of people didn't even know really much about Whitman variants. So we've got some people saying, hey, thanks for the info. A couple of people have been collecting some Whitmans now a little bit more, kind of seeing the history behind that. When we talk about how rare things are, when we talk about print runs, we're going to get into that when we talk about Newsstand and Direct right now. But just seeing how low those print ones are, and especially finding them in good condition because they had so much opportunity to get wrecked. But the big thing that we kind of mentioned a little bit, and we talked a little bit more off the air about, I guess really the update would be why Whitman started to make those without the barcodes in there. So when they first did it the first year, when you see those Whitman packs, because a lot of times you can find them online, the Whitman packs, just like Shelby has right there, it will have a barcode in there.
Yeah, I picked this up from Comic Slabs and Statues a couple of weeks ago. He's on Gorilla Talk with me. And he had this up for sale, and I immediately saw as a Whitman, and then I saw the barcode. I'm like, wait a minute, that's what Jeff was talking about. That because all of my Whitmans, except for this one, do not have a barcode. And so I was like, I want that. I mean, I was like, hey, whatever price, and it wasn't much. I mean, this is a pretty wrecked copy. But I got it, and sure enough, I said, okay, if Jeff's information is correct, this should be somewhere around 1979. And sure enough, this is 1979. So 78 and 79, you'll find these Whitmans that are denoted, of course, by the triangle, what I call the symmetrical triangle or diamond, and a barcode. And then go ahead. Why did they take away the barcode?
One of the problems they were having is because they had to repackage those into 3-packs when they were scanning them, both them while they were doing it and the actual retailers were accidentally scanning the individual comic and not the 3-pack. So it was causing a lot of inventory issues. It was causing problems at registers. So Whitman, excuse me, obviously had a lot of buying power, being really the first big direct company that was buying comics direct. Pretty much went to Marvel and said, listen, we're having a lot of problems here. Can you just do away with the barcode? That would make our life so much easier. And that's pretty much what they did.
Wow. Yeah. So that is a great way to be able to denote what era of Whitmans you have when you find those symmetrical diamond Whitmans. Is if it has a barcode, it's probably going to be 1978, 79, maybe early 80s, but definitely 80s and above. No barcode. So yeah.
Starscream, you're right. They were really doing direct. Stores were buying direct like from 75, 76. They're buying earlier, and they were newsstand copies. They were barcodes, everything else. And there were a lot of people, because it was all back then, it was done pretty much on the honor system. You tell us, how many that you need to return type of thing. And they were having people getting them into the direct or buying back issues and then returning it into the newsstand dealers. And there was a lot of that going on as well. I don't know if a lot, but there was obviously some of that going on, was causing some problems. And that's when eventually you see the barcode with the line through it. That was in 79 that really started. Mm-hmm. So that helped get rid of that as well.
Yeah. And they also used the diamonds for subscription comics. So they're not just Whitman, but if you had a subscription with Marvel where you tore out the little coupon in the comic book and got a subscription, it was usually a diamond book. So that way it couldn't be returned via the newsstand route.
Right. So, and then a nice subscription crease right in the middle where they fold it and stick it in your mailbox.
Exactly. and usually wet because it's wrapped in just the brown paper and stuff. Yep. I had a subscription to Godzilla and Shogun Warriors.
Oh, nice. Very cool. Southern, what's going on, man? I appreciate you showing up. And Southern is right. Look at that. Shelby is only 9 subs away from 200.
Oh, man. All right.
If you haven't subbed him up, get him over to 200.
Yeah.
He'll give you a cat.
Okay. You'll get a cat.
He's got plenty.
Sure. Well, great. Yeah. Give me over that 200. And then I am planning a 250 subscriber giveaway after that. So once I get past the 200, then we'll start talking about the 250. So I felt like that was a good incremental number, like 250, 500, 750, 1,000. I don't know. My head loves numbers, which you will find that out tonight with all the numbers I'm going to throw at you with our discussion. So one piece of caveat is, when Jeff and I first started about doing this, one thing we wanted to do was present information as unbiasedly as possible. And we've talked a lot about, is that anecdotal information? Is that information directly from a source whom was there? And so we have been trying to pride ourselves on bringing the most accurate information and being unbiased with that information. So tonight, I think that there's going to be a lot of surprises with some of the numbers I'm going to present, and I'm not going to be biased as to as to any certain way. I'm just going to present the information. So, So Jeff and I have tried hard to do that.
One
All
other show
right.
gives away free cats. That's right, Scarecrow. Hey, I think Southern, you got a contest going on right now as well. So
Oh, what's Southern
if no
got?
one is subbed up to Southern, make sure you get over to Southern Comic Geek as well. He has tons of giveaways. I actually won a big giveaway from him, one of the first ones I won, so that was awesome. So make sure you sub Southern up as well. Shelby has to go to a camera stuff. All about the kitties.
Yeah, I sometimes always joke. I think they're more popular than I am.
It's true.
So, like I said, you don't have to go very far in this house to touch a comic book or a cat. All right.
Let's get into it.
Get into it, man. Let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen here and all right. So you're going to have to help me out because I'm looking at the slides and not the screen back there.
I got you.
But episode 4, Direct versus Newsstand. So let's get into this. So first, I'm define Direct Comics and Newsstand Comics. Probably most of y'all already know this information. So the direct market began somewhere around 1972 with Seagate. But like Jeff and I just got through talking about, directs really were not printed until somewhere around 78, 79 with like the Whitman books is probably the first direct books, I would think. Direct only can be distinguished by a number of features. In 1979, like we just got through talking about, Marvel had the small diamond at the top left and a slash to the UPC code starting around 79. And then they went to, of course, the blank UPC. DC, Jeff, I'm not sure if you really found out any more, but it was really hard to narrow down a date of being able to look at a DC book and it be designated as direct. I didn't see any kind of intermediate like we do with Marvel, where you went from slash UPC diamond in the logo, no UPC to like the Spider-Man head or Captain America head. DC, it just seemed like somewhere in the early 80s, boom, all of a sudden they started having alternate pictures in the boxes.
Yeah, no, DC, again, same thing was harder because they were doing, the Whitman actually published DC Comics for a while. So they had the Superman in the box where the UPC was going for. So they've been doing it longer than Marvel was, and they just kind of phase things in and out. And it was kind of like we talked about the Wild West a little bit, where there was no set thing or consistency in how they did stuff. It was just kind of how, I guess, the editor at the time or what they wanted to do at the time or what the printer maybe had available. And they seemed to do things all over the place for the most part. Yeah. Even when you're talking about denotions between second prints and third prints and fourth prints, there was no consistency. Sometimes in the covers, like if you look at a Transformers 1, you have no idea just by looking at the cover, is it a second or third print or a first print? With the G.I. Joes, they'll have like a white Spider-Man face, then they'll go to the black Spider-Man one, but that wasn't always consistent throughout the series because a lot of those have first and second prints through the first 5-10 issues. So yeah, it was very inconsistent how they did it. So yeah, there's nothing I can really tell you on DC side.
Yeah, so this is just a few examples kind of through the ages, so to speak. DC would put a little advertisement like here, where the action is. That's what the sign used to be above my ex-wife's bed. In some cases, they would put credits, like in this Batman Adventures, they put the credits of the writer, artist, and inker in the box, which I thought was pretty clever. Of course, we know the white Spidey head and black Spidey head, the Captain America head, but then a lot of artists like Todd McFarlane and Ron Lim here, actually drew extra little pictures. And then as we got into the late 90s, when scanners started becoming ubiquitous across stores, they then started denoting direct by the actual words direct edition in the UPC there. So Why are newsstand books demanding higher prices? All right, I'm going to let y'all in on a little bit of history here. So there's two arguments that I could figure out looking at a lot of information of why newsstands should demand higher prices. The first argument is lower print runs of newsstand versus direct, and we'll look at that in a moment. The second argument is it's more difficult to find higher grade copies of newsstand books due to those books being on a newsstand, for example, a spinner rack. So some of the arguments people have said is newsstands had more potential for being handled by a large number of people, thus a greater chance of being damaged prior to purchase. The path from printer to newsstand allowed for more opportunity for damage because you went through your independent distributors. And then people that purchase from newsstands, I've heard people say that maybe those are more readers, where people that purchase from comic book stores maybe could be defined more as collectors, right? Like they would be more protective of their books, maybe buy bags and boards, put their comics in bags and boards once they bought them. You know, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not giving an opinion. I'm just presenting what arguments I've been able to find. So do you have anything you wanted to really add at this time? Because we're going to look at both these arguments a bit more deeply.
Yeah, no, I know we're going to dive deeper into those, but yeah, those are definitely the biggest arguments. Is at certain times, depending on what year you're looking at, the print runs are going to be lower, or they're going to talk about the sell-through rate. Yeah, they're going to say, okay, even if the print run was higher, you know, when you talk about a sell-through rate, again, we'll talk about that because that number, depending who you see or who you talk to, is going to vary quite varied. So you're going to have to decide what you want to look at and what you want to do. But you take that in consideration, take that number, divide it by, you know, whatever sell-through rate it is. And then you've got, like you said, the condition aspect. Okay, of those that survived, how many of those are really in good condition?
Right.
So, that's the whole argument for the newsstand higher price.
Yeah, so let's look at argument number one, lower print runs of newsstand versus direct. So what most people have used, and you know, I'll give a short story, is about a year ago, I was talking to another person here in Houston on an auction, and I don't know, I made a comment in the chat, something like, well, that year of newsstand wasn't that different in terms of the number of copies as compared to direct. And this guy just went freaking crazy on me. And he actually then posted a video on YouTube and called me out by name.
Really?
To prove how I was wrong.
People get very passionate about this stuff.
Yeah, some people are passionate about it, man. And so he presented to me this graph. And immediately, you know, what I looked at is, well, this graph is only showing on like the y-axis more or less. And then it's showing these arbitrary years across the y-axis and two lines. You know, that doesn't really tell you any kind of percentages. It doesn't tell you print run numbers or anything, right? People just see that, you know, that newsstands drop below direct after about 1995, and then start, I don't want to say assuming that around 1990 maybe they're a lot less plentiful, but anyway, this is the graph that a lot of people usually cite.
Yeah. And Matthew Fox is right. You know, he says that also, you know, people feel that newsstands were treated as less than compared to direct issues for a few decades. You know, obviously you own a comic book store for years in the 80s and 90s. You know, I'm sure there were circumstances because of the delay that happens. You know, you were direct, so you got the comics a week or so ahead of time of what you'll find on the newsstand. If you sold out of your direct copies, I'm sure you can go over to the newsstand across the street and buy theirs up a week later because those were selling, right? I mean, people buy them from the actual comic book store.
And you're 100% right. I owned a comic store from 1988 to 1993. And, this is right at the boom of the comic market during that time. And this same debate was going on then. And people used to say no one would ever want newsstand copies because it has that ugly UPC code in it. And more people wanted direct copies. Now, we did get our books 2 weeks before the newsstands. And I remember selling out of example, Amazing Spider-Man 300. And I remember hitting grocery stores and paying kids in the neighborhood to go get copies of Amazing Spider-Man 300 for me from the grocery stores. And I would give them trade in my store. And then I would sell them for $20 each. I mean, I remember doing it. So,
I'm sorry. I can just picture you right. The cat is not having this conversation right now.
I see that.
that is a newsstand cat right there. I can just picture you drive around in like a white van, ringing the bell, saying, "Hey kids, you want to make a couple of bucks?"
But seriously, I would pay the neighborhood kids to go and when I sold out of something, and my distributor, which Capital City did not do, once you sold out, that was it. Like, you could not order again. Diamond was your second. So once you sold out from your stuff from Capital City, you called up Diamond, and Diamond would get you books 2 weeks later. So now let's look exactly at these percentages. All right, so both these arguments can be traced back to a 2013 article from Chuck Ronzowski at Mile High Comics. And he provided some percentages based on estimates that he and Jim Shooter had put together for the early 80s. And he admits in his article that he kind of estimated from the 90s on what those numbers were. So in 1979, roughly 94% was newsstand, 6% was direct. I'm not going to go through every single year, but 82, you see newsstand is 80%, 86, 50%, 1990, 15%, 1995, 10%, year 2000, 5%, 2005, 2%, 2013, which was the last year of newsstand comics, which was Marvel, was he estimated at 1%. However, Bill James, VP of Marvel that started in 1999, he actually did an audit and found that in 1999, newsstands was actually more around 14%. And he does have numbers showing that the last of their newsstand market was to Barnes & Nobles and Books A Million. And that print run of newsstands at that time was 6.8% in 2013. So my question, of course, is at what percentage is something considered rare? Exactly. I know that when we talked about Whitman's, when we talked about a couple other books, Mark Jewelers, we were kind of using that 5% range as rare. So if you use that same 5% criteria, really, there are no such thing as rare newsstands because they never reached below that. But go ahead, Jeff.
Well, I was going to say we weren't necessarily using that as the gauge of if it's under 5%, it's rare. That's just happened to be the print run of Mark Jewelers, and Whitman's. They were about a 5%. So again, like you said, what do you consider rare? 5%, obviously, we can agree is pretty rare. You don't see as many of those out there. But can also 10 or 20% be rare, and yet 80 or 70%? That's the question we kind of leave up to everyone on there. And to the cat. So who knows what it could be. But yeah, I think 5% for sure. We can all agree 5% is rare, and then we kind of go up from there.
Yeah. And you're right. You're right. I kind of misspoke, is that we was considering Mark Jewelers as rare and the print run was around 5%.
Right.
We were considering Whitman's as rare and the print run was around 5%. So yes, you're right. I slightly misspoke there.
Right. And Sean, you're absolutely right. If you're at a newsstand, you would get credit, so you would either, in the beginning, it was just like an affidavit, what did you do? What did you sell through? We'll give you credit for it. Then they started ripping covers off. You return the covers and you threw out the comics. We know people didn't do that. But yeah, if it's a newsstand, you can get credit for it. That's why when we talk about it in a minute, the sell-through rate is going to be how much actually sold and what was returned, or what did they get credit for? What did they throw out? So that's what we're going to talk about in a minute.
Yeah, and so just to make that clear, in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, you had to rip the cover off and send those covers back for credit. And we have pictures, Jeff and I actually have pictures showing where bookstores would package up coverless books into like 10 packs and sell them for like 25 cents. Then you just had to rip the title off around the mid 60s. But then starting around 1974, 75, you just did affidavits. So you just wrote down what percentage you didn't sell, and then you would get credit. And Jim Shooter in an interview said that the dishonesty was rampant in terms of what distributors would say, was actually sold and not sold. So let's look at some numbers. All right, I got another cat that just jumped up here. All right, so exactly
from Captain Ramos, everyone's talking about the Walmart variants. Obviously, there's a ton of Walmarts, the biggest retailer. I know not all of the Walmarts carry comics, and obviously not all the comics that are in the Walmart packs are Walmart variants. They buy a lot of the overstock that Marvel gets rid of and dumps out and DC dumps out. So there are some exclusive ones that they do. I don't know. That's actually a good question that I want to look into a little bit and find out how many are they printing for those kind of exclusive variants they do. That's a great question.
Yeah. So I took only Chuck's values. I didn't take the ones from Jameis. Anyway, Bill. I didn't take his numbers. I took only Chuck. And since the late 80s, early 90s, the benchmark has always been Amazing Spider-Man and Batman, because those were the two top sellers in comics. So looking at those peak years between 1985 and 1997, you can see the print runs here. So looking at like Spider-Man 301, really close to number 300, and this is an average for the previous 6 months or year. The print run was 469,000 copies. So if we were to take the percentage that was newsstand, then that would mean of Amazing Spider-Man 300, first appearance of Spawn, there's almost 100,000 copies in existence of that newsstand. Of course, McFarlane and then Spawn and Carnage shot sales of Spider-Man way up. So if you look at 360 and 375 and 386, you're looking at print runs of 660,000 and over 700,000 books a month. And so if you were to take those percentages, which were interpolated out to be 12% and 11% respectively, you're looking at almost 80,000 copies of those books. So that would include your first Carnage, your, you know, bigger Venom appearances. And then, of course, we know as the 90s went on, that the print runs dwindled because of you know, just the comic bust. But even if we look at 1997, the print runs were still over 500,000 copies. And if you took the Chuck number of 8%, which was really probably more around 14%, according to Bill, you're still looking at around 21 or almost 22,000 copies of that book as newsstand. So today, it's kind of known that we consider low print runs as anything under 18,000 copies. That's just kind of the arbitrary number that's used to the notion of low print run. So really, up until the 2000s, looking at just the print runs, none of these are really considered low print runs using that criteria.
If we're talking total print run, yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously these are huge numbers. These are numbers even modern day comics now a lot of times don't reach.
Yes, you're right. Right.
Exactly. The only caveat to this, and I know we're going to talk about, is what is the sell through. So they printed 600,000, and like say if Chuck's numbers are right, and it's 12% went through, 12% or for newsstand. So that's 79,000. Of that 79,000, how many actually were bought and how many were returned?
Right.
That's where some of the values we're going to see. I know you're going to talk about where this is blended average compared to top sellers kind of thing.
Right. So before we even talk about that, you know, let's caveat it with one, we cannot trust those numbers because the IDs, the independent distributors, freaking just flat out lied about what numbers they were actually selling. Jim Shooter himself said maybe some of those print run, maybe some of those sell-through percentages are correct. However, he said more popular books such as X-Men and Spider-Man always sold through 100%. And that those numbers definitely could not be trusted because he knew that those sold through at 100%. Second is when we talk about sell through, the formula for that is damages plus unsold comics. So these were comics sent back due to excessive damage. That could have been from direct distribution, right? Like Diamond or Capital City got in a really screwed up pallet and they had to send back 1,000 copies because they'd gotten wet or excessive damage. So you can't look at these sell through as newsstand only because the formula is damages plus unsold books. All right.
So that they separate those out, right? Direct and newsstand, or are you saying that's all together?
It's all lumped together. It can't be separated, right? Because the actual formula, according to where's that big book of mine?
Oh, yeah, that's interesting because obviously they are going to two separate places.
Yeah. So this right here that defines what sell through means, and it is damage plus unsold copies minus print run.
Right.
So, but that's not to say some of those sent back damages couldn't have come from newsstand copies too. I'm just saying that probably the more prevalent ones, I think, would be through direct distribution because newsstands didn't give a shit if they put a damaged book out on the shelf or not, right?
It's very true. Yeah, unless the whole cover is ripped off, you know, you're probably right there.
Yeah,
and like everyone's saying in the chat, it's like you said, it's going to vary by the actual issue. Like you said, Spider-Man, Batman, X-Men, they're going to be a higher selling, and then you got the Novas and everything in the world are going to be lower, and those will probably return a little more. And the reason why I just kind of bring that up is let's see that formula that you're talking about, and then there's this kind of arbitrary 30% number that's always thrown out. And I don't know if that's a blended number that the people have gotten somewhere, because I've seen it posted regularly. People always say it's a 30% sell-through rate, so you take that print run, times 0.3, and now you get the actual copies, and then you got how many were damaged, over below a 9.2 and all that stuff. But it could be coming from the magazine. So the magazine industry is very much a 30 to 40% sell-through rate.
So anyway, this is just another way of depicting what I was just showing in that table. So the yellow is the amount of newsstands percentage based on the print run. So you can see that, unlike that one graph we looked at, which was those perfect, beautiful lines,
right?
It's not. It is not a straight linear. It's not. You have larger print runs with different percentages. It is not a linear extrapolation of what newsstands are to direct. All right. So now looking at the what this is actual data from Marvel. So I took the same Amazing Spider-Man books. I'm showing the same print run numbers we saw a minute ago. They also reported the amount paid or sell through, which is print run minus returns. And returns are defined as damaged or unsold books. Of course, go ahead.
I was just going to say that Amazing Spider-Man 287 that came out in 1887. Man, if you can find that one, I would hold on.
Oh, did I? Damn it, Jeff. All right. Yes, you can find that one. That's an expensive book. Anyway, I'll fix that. But we can see. Let me move it over because I can't see my thing.
There you go.
Oh, is it not showing on that?
Yeah, it's not showing over here. Yeah. So that would be better.
Oh, gosh. Sorry. I did not know
Perfect.
that.
Yep.
I did not know that. I hope none of the other stuff was cut off.
No, you can read the rest of it. Like that one, I didn't know there was another column.
Okay. So if you took these numbers as true, but I would call them suspect, then you look at the percentage sale, then the amount of newsstands sold do drop down pretty low. So you see in 1990, well, let's take the Amazing Spider-Man 301. If the sell-through rate was 61%, and then you were to take the percentage of newsstand, then that does come out to about 18,000 copies. But again, I would call any of these numbers, the sell-through numbers, as suspect. And
it's the best we can go with, right? I mean, this is data from Marvel. This is the best that's kind of available that you found, right? So yeah. Not a better source you can go through. Are numbers fudged all the time in corporate? Sure. But this is all we can go when we present whatever we can find.
Yeah. All right. So now argument 2, less high-grade copies of newsstand versus direct. So here's the exact quote from Chuck's article. He stated, "The startling statistics do not take into account survivability and damage. We found that VF and near mint newsstand editions are far scarcer as a percentage of issues that we purchase in collections. Simply put, newsstand readers and the staff of newsstands were far more likely to beat up their comics, and newsstand racks, such as metal spinner racks, actually damage comics darn near the minute that they were racked. As a result, finding the few surviving near mint newsstand editions is surprisingly difficult." This is his own of collections only he has purchased. He looked through his own. Now, granted, he does have a huge 10 million, whatever, right? But, Chuck's been known to fib about things before. And, you know,
Well, what does the data show? What does it show? What do you got?
all right. So let's look at what you and I were able to find. So show me the data. So sadly, CGC doesn't break out newsstand versus direct, but I did do a search on eBay for spawn number 1, newsstand versus direct in grades 9.2 and above. So newsstand, I found 27 spawn number 1 newsstands, and there were 2 pages of results. I only counted the first page, so actually there was more than 27, and 25 direct. Now, Spawn is published in 2002, in which there was only supposed to be 13% of newsstand books produced. It looks 50-50 to me in high grade. So, but again, there were certain books like Amazing Spider-Man 300, Spawn number 1. Remember, I was getting kids to go get Spider-Man 300 off of newsstand racks for me as soon as they hit the newsstand. So they didn't have time to be molested or anything like that, you know?
Well, we're talking about the books, not the kids, right?
Yeah. The books, not the kids. Sorry. Yeah. No, my van had windows. So what we see happen in the market is as soon as something becomes hot, then you tend to see more of it listed. So I find that even trying to use eBay as a equalizer may be somewhat difficult. You know, like it was hard to find, you know, certain West Coast Avengers books for me to complete my West Coast Avengers run. Then all of a sudden WandaVision came out, and guess what? Suddenly a ton of West Coast Avengers are up on eBay because, you know, people can actually make money on them. You found some stuff too. You did a little bit of research, and you looked at Amazing Spider-Man 194, which is first Black Cat. CGC was split 50-50 for newsstand and at 9.2 compared to 6 direct. eBay, we found 13 newsstand to 2 direct. So again, more newsstand than direct. Do you want to read this? I mean, you probably know a little more.
Yeah, I was just going for trying to separate, as we all kind of seen that graph, you know, going there. So I wanted to try to compare what was in the beginning of newsstands and the beginning of directs. So the newsstands and the directs, you know, when we're talking about the 70s and early 80s, you know, those direct copies were far less printed. So I wanted to see what those look like compared to what kind of the newsstand direct of the 90s and 2000s look like. So it really kind of depends. There is no CGC data that we found, but CBCS does break it out. So we did share some. I don't know if it's on the next slide or not, but I did show some of that data. No, it wasn't. So the CBCS does break out, and they've been doing that for some odd reason. They only do from I forgot the years, but something like 1980 to 2000. They don't go past 2000 for some odd reason, even though there was newsstands after that. But they do show higher grade newsstands are very rare. You know, they are that 13 to up to 30% is what I found in a comparison. eBay, it's hard to choose through there. You know, some of the ones, like even when you did Spawn, I did Spawn a couple days later, looked at it, and I found the reverse. You know, I found a lot more direct, a lot less newsstands. So it just, like you said, it's popularity. It's at the time you look at it. I wish CGC broke it out like CBCS does. But looking at the data, again, that's all we can do is look at the data. The data, at least from CBCS, definitely shows higher grade newsstands are rarer than direct.
Yeah, and Sean, that's definitely the point we're trying to make is, you know, this is what we have to use. And I agree, trying to use eBay as marketing data is not a good idea. Even using CBCS as marketing data, right? Because this is only books that were sent to CBCS. I mean, you know.
So it's all we can do is do what the numbers have. I mean, obviously it's not as big as CGC, but if they obviously still look through hundreds of thousands of books, and if they're showing these percentages, then that's what we can present. You know, when you look at eBay, you can't look at the description, because everyone's going to say whatever they want to in the description. I mean, I found newsstand, people saying it's newsstand, but it really wasn't. People were calling it Whitman's when it really wasn't. People were actually, I found a few of them that people were calling it direct, and they were actually newsstands. So it's, people are calling first appearance of Kate Bishop on like a Daredevil book. I mean, it's whatever's hot, whatever the buzzword is, they're going to put that in their listing. So you definitely can't look at the listing titles.
Yeah. Now, this is definitely, I would say, anything from the late 90s through the 2000s that are newsstands. Oh, I agree. Those 100% should be defined as rare if you want to do that.
Yep.
Now, remember, the only difference is there's a little bitty word that says direct edition in the UPC versus it's not. They were both printed at the same time. It was just a different, and this is all electronic printing now,
Right. It's still a variant. It's a variant. So.
I mean, they're all printed at the same time. The only difference is of two words on the front cover. I mean, I'm not positive. I don't know. I still find it difficult to call that a variant or something rare when it's just, I don't know. It's all printed at the same time, man.
Well, that's the main reason why CGC does not break out newsstands, except if there's a change in something. So they're on the same boat as you. If it just changes the barcode from 4 digits to 2, they don't call that out. But if there's a price change, because a lot of newsstands had a different price change. I mean, not a lot of newsstands, but there were obviously quite a few newsstands that charged a higher price than the direct version. They will then call that out and say it's a newsstand. And that's why you see, sometimes you'll see, CGC calling out newsstands on a label, and sometimes they don't. There has to be more in their mind than just a UPC 2-digit number to justify the change. So if you look at, just so people know, I don't know if you want to make this bigger for you or not.
Yeah, it says this is the last slide. So what does all this mean? Right, we're going to have some words of wisdom, and definitely leave your comments and opinions below. We'd love to hear them. We do not get enough comments, I tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to show, as we kind of said, the difference we're talking about. I don't have a newer newsstand one, but when you look at this is a newsstand, and you can tell by the 2 digits that are right here. The end has 2 digits right there. And a regular direct copy, if it doesn't say direct on there, oh, there you go.
There you go.
It could have the 4 digits. See the 4 digits up there? That's the only way you can really tell if it's a newsstand or direct, is if you see a 4-digit there or you see a 2-digit there. That's how you know it's a newsstand compared to a direct. So, yeah, again, the late 1990s, 2000s, from I pretty much say from 2000 to 2013. I mean, those are rare. I dig through those all the time, and I have a hard time finding them. So I definitely qualify those as rare. And that, again, depending what you look at, is 14, 10%, 8% of the total print run, which still could be pretty high. But again, compared to everything else in there, it is definitely lower than 90+%. So it all depends what you want to do. I've got weird ADD thing, compulsive stuff. So if I have a bunch of newsstands and I have one direct in the middle, I'm like, well, I got to get a newsstand now. Or vice versa. If I have all direct and there's a newsstand in the middle, I got to get rid of that.
I'll have to admit that when I sell off duplicates of like Bronze Age and Silver Age books, Bronze Age books, Copper Age, I guess I should probably more appropriately say Copper Age. If both of my copies, if one's a newsstand and one's a direct, guess what? I don't have a duplicate. I keep them both. I followed into the trap too, even though, and I think maybe there's a couple of takeaways here. Is we just wanted to elaborate that there's not a linear progression in the amount of newsstands across time, and that if you take into account print runs and percentages, that newsstands really are perhaps more prevalent than what people are assuming. Second is maybe direct. If we think about early direct copies being low print runs in the early 80s, and we know that comic shops weren't as prevalent, then maybe those should get some of the same love as the inverse.
Yeah.
That's
what I was trying to show in those early numbers I put up is those early direct issues where we're talking 10% or less of the printed were direct. Yes, they were all sold, they couldn't be returned, but there's still only 5 or 10% of those numbers. Those should be going for a premium. When we're talking about Whitman's and Mark Jewelers and later newsstands all going for massive premiums, you look at early directs, they're not going for a premium, they're going for the same. And a lot of cases, newsstands will still outsell them because they're newsstands, and people are calling that out. So I really think early direct should be going for a lot more money. But again, we just want to kind of present those numbers to people and let people decide. There's definitely a lot of cases where you should be looking for newsstands, and if you're trying to get the most value for it, and the other time you should be looking for direct.
Yeah, and just be wary. Do not fall into the trap of someone pulling out a book from 1985 and saying, "Oh, it's a newsstand." I mean, so what? I mean, over half the books printed in 1985 were newsstands. I just, until you get to the mid 90s, I think that's where it starts to matter. But what I've been telling people for a long time, print runs all in general, in totality, dropped in the mid 90s and beyond. So really, you should be buying up anything from the freaking mid 90s because the print runs were so low after the comic bust that, it's going to be hard to find those books.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Captain Ramos says, so now for new grails, find early direct low print run titles. I think absolutely. When everything starts coming around and catch up and people get over the everything newsstand thing, then, it's the pendulum that always swings. You always see everyone goes, oh, newsstands are always the greatest. Then they'll come back over and go, whoa, wait a minute, directs are actually really low print runs over here. So the main thing, obviously, always collect what you love. That's always the main thing for it.
Yeah.
And if you want to find things, to hunt things that are a little bit rare, that's when you maybe break it out and look into more of the niche kind of things doing. But again, I appreciate everyone kind of commenting over here. We got a great live chat going on for everyone. If you're watching the replay, make sure you catch us live on Mondays. And what do you think about doing some giveaways?
Oh, yeah. Why not? So what do we get? 11 people watching, 16 thumbs up. So, hey, thank you, everyone that joined us. We always get a lot of people watching us on the rewind. Definitely, if you're catching us on the rewind, give us some comments down below. Be sure and sub us up. Yeah, let's see what we got around here. I'll be honest, I could not think of a theme. So I'm just going to give away some. This seems so sad. I'll be honest with you. I'm just going to give away a set of punchline number 1. So the tattoo variant, the blank variant, and the regular cover. Plus, I'm going to throw in a couple extra little goodies, like I always do. If you're a DC fan. So, let's see. What's a good trivia question here? Let
me look up mine.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to. Yeah. I'll grab it if you want. Nice. Think of a trivia question for me, then.
Man, I had a trivia question. Now
You had
that
one.
we're live right now, I can't remember what it is. Not a DC fan, but what do you say, Max?
Not
Not
a
a
fan
DC
of us.
fan, but now fan of you.
Let's see. How about
What do you got?
what was punchline. So how about what book did the Joker first appear in? What Batman title did the Joker first appear in? And I will do a start line.
That's a good one.
There you go, Matthew. Yep, Batman #1. Yep. Okay, so Jeff has a giveaway, and I'm going to share.
I'm pulling it up right here.
All right, so I think I'm sharing it. So Jeff's going to give away this Captain America King Size Annual #3. Looks in pretty good shape to me. Looks like probably a BF minus, some cool Kirby art. So
yeah. So again, the first direct issues, obviously, we were giving away last week when we talked about Whitman. So I wanted to find what was the first comic that had a UPC on there. And so the digging I did, this is the first one that I can find. The first Marvel book with the UPC on it was that Captain America Annual 3. And that was in January 1976, like the third week in January 1976. So again, we always want to try and give, part of history away or something. It's not a key. It's not anything major. The book's not in the greatest shape. But again, it's a part of history, and it's the first book that I can find that has UPC on it. So if anyone can find anything different, if a different book is, but that's what I found. So again, we'll kind of make this one Captain America related. So if anyone wants to see, what is the first appearance of Bucky?
Ooh.
If you get that one.
Wow.
First appearance of Bucky.
Oh, I do know that one.
Yeah, you know that one.
I know that one.
19 thumbs up. He said 12 people watching right now. Appreciate everyone's been sticking around for us. We've been on for an hour right now. Matthew Fox again.
Man.
Look at you, buddy. You're on it today. You took the pills, man. Captain, I thought I'd throw you off with Bucky. People might say he must have appeared in 2 or 3. He couldn't appear in the first issue, but you're right.
He was in #1. Yeah. Yeah. So I would have. Anyway, that's a good one. All right, congrats, Matthew. We will send out your stuff to you again. Out Fox again. Oh, Captain Ramus.
He was taking notes the whole time. You got to remember, there's always a quiz afterwards.
There is. Well, hopefully we shed maybe a little bit of light and make you think a little bit more. I mean, I think there's a lot of hype right now surrounding, newsstands and, so we just wanted to kind of bring out some numbers. So hopefully we've done that. And, I guess, like I said, maybe kind of showed a little bit of a different picture than what others have shown. I've never seen anybody pull out these print run numbers and really break them down before. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's everyone shows the Chuck chart, and everything that, he talks about. But when you look at some of the other data that's available, like you said, it's not a straight, graph. There's definitely huge opportunities to buy newsstands, and you should in certain areas. But again, it's not the end all be all. But we just want to get the numbers out to you just so everyone has that information, so you kind of know what you're looking for and you're not overpaying on something that you really don't have to.
Yeah. Yeah, Sean, there was not any distinction up until the 1978, 79. And that's when they started doing the diamond. The diamond was your first designation, but we do know that Phil Suling and Seagate and Bud Plant was selling comics in a direct market prior to that, but they were all the same. So,
yeah, you go into a regular comic book shop in the 70s, and they would all be newsstands in there. So,
yeah. So we were talking about what we're going to do for our next couple of episodes. We have a lot of things in the can and in the pipe, so to speak. One of the things that I have put together is censorship in comics, which several people have said they wanted to hear about. You maybe had a question so Jeff and I take turns. And we kind of pick topics, and of course we share channels. I mean, not share channels, but we flip between channels.
Next week will be on my channel, and then the week after will be on Shelby's. So, Sean, yeah, good question. The diagonal slash to the barcode, that was after the diamonds.
Diamond.
So that was 1979 is when you got that slash through the UPC, and the diamonds actually started coming out in the 77. So you definitely see some differences there. But for the next show next week, I got two things I want to talk about. So you guys let me know in the chat, comment below, what do you want to hear about? So the first one is either going to be about price variance, and that's going to be regular price variance and Canadian price variance, or talking about other variants. So you've got cover variants, that kind of started in the late 80s and in the 90s. So talking about variants, all those different forms, store exclusives and everything that you can do for those. And then we got obviously the second prints, third prints, fourth prints and everything. So it's either going to be something on the price variant side or something on the comic cover variants. So you guys let me know which ones you want to hear. Or we can have an all cat episode. It's totally up to you. Blame Canada. Like it.
Yeah, and we wasn't sure if kind of split it up a little bit. Maybe Jeff's next couple episodes that he hosts, maybe he talks variants. But then in the middle, you would have me talking about censorship. But yeah, y'all let us know. You can IG us. You can leave a comment below, or you can shout it out right now. And I think what we might do too is we're thinking about, we've had a difficult time coming up with a good logo for the show.
Yeah.
So maybe have a logo contest. So you people out there think y'all are artists, graphic designers, show us some of your chops and, start thinking up maybe some designs for the More You Know Mondays with Shelby and Jeff logo. And maybe we'll have a little announcement about that, do a little contest.
Yeah. And I'm still pushing Shelby to tweak the t-shirts so we get t-shirts out, because those are cool.
We got some t-shirt plans for the show coming up. I'm not going to get into the reason why I haven't gotten some things finished yet, because that's another whole discussion. But we will be having some t-shirts, coffee mugs, things like that that you can purchase and help us out. So yeah, that's kind of it. What do you got going on this week? I know you got your interview show that you now are doing every other Sunday.
Yeah, every other Sunday. So we've got, this week is the interview week. So this week I'm going to be interviewing our Nerd Tuini about how to start a podcast. So if you're interested about how to want to do a podcast, he kind of walks through all the equipment that you'll need, what he's doing, how he's monetizing it. So he's another great guy from the comic community that you probably have seen around. He's got a couple different accounts that he works with. So that's going to be this Sunday. And then obviously the following Sunday after that, that's where the Samurai Sunday, the auction on, actually that next auction will be on my channel as well. So we're going to switch off from Wild Comics to it's my channel as well. So make sure you sub up both of us so you hit those. And then of course on Tuesdays, You got Wild Comics on Instagram. He does this giveaway. So make sure you get in for that, for his free giveaway. Wednesday is Duffy Boy Comics. So Duffy Boy does his new comic book day on Instagram as well. Thursdays, we got Thunderdome. You're going to be with me on Thunderdome this week, right?
We will. We will both be on Thunder God's channel on Thursday for that. As far as I know, Gorilla Todd will be back that coming Saturday with that auction, and I'll of course be on there. Anything on Fridays? Friday we get a night off.
Friday and Saturday, unless you got Gorilla Todd on Saturday, Friday we leave it to you guys. You have a night off from us. But other than that, we try and control your whole week.
We do.
Yeah, we just try and, like I said, we want to build the community up, and it's been such a great, welcoming community, and we try to help each other out. So again, if you have anything, any ideas, suggestions, or you want to promote anything, you got expertise on a topic, you want to be interviewed, you want to come on the show, certainly let us know. Shoot us a message. We'd love to involve you guys. I appreciate everyone still hanging out over an hour into this. And make sure, again, we see you next Monday. And I've seen a couple comments about price variance. So maybe we'll do the price variance, because we already talked about regional price variance and Canadian price variance. So that may be the one to go. Obviously, that time frame for Canadian price variance, even though it was only a few years in the 80s, there were some killer books that came out then. So you got a lot of good books. And that's, I think, the reason why, when we talk about why Whitman wasn't as popular and why Canadian price variants are popular, is because you've got some killer books that happen. Some keys there.
You got a lot of key Star Wars books that have Canadian price variants that I've done very well with selling. I'm not gonna fib at all. I've done very well with them. So
the first appearance of Beta Ray Bill. You got Transformers. You got G.I. Joe. I mean, pretty much every major thing. Some of the major Spidey keys. You're getting all Canadian price variance out of that. So I think that'll be the next one. Okay. And again, I appreciate you guys coming here and hanging out with us. Make sure you have a good week, and we appreciate everyone.
Hey, we do. We really appreciate y'all. Of course, we couldn't do this without you. Thank you for all your love, support, and always remember, it's tough out there. Be good to one another, but most of all, peace, love, and comics.
See you guys.
Good night, all.